Hello, everyone. So I'd like to walk you through some of my reflections on this article, America and the Fun Generation by Anand Giridharadas. So he's a columnist for the New York Times who writes wonderful stuff, and I like to read his thoughts. You should be logged into your Digo group or into your Digo account so that you can see the annotations that I've left on the page. And you'll also be able to see some of the sticky notes. There are 2 sticky notes that are there. You can ignore the questions that are in the sticky notes because I've pretty much put them on the wiki page. And so here he talks about the rise and the fall of the 2 pairs of words. And he pairs up achievement and fun. That's the first pair. And the next pair is excellence and pleasure. And so he says that these pairs of words have been in a kind of a quiet battle that has been simmering for the nation's soul. That's pretty dramatic. And he says from the 1810s to the 2000s, he's seen, or you can actually extract from a database of English words from newspapers, magazines, novels, plays, film scripts, etc., the number of times that the word fun is used and versus pleasure. And so what he starts by telling us that the word fun has increased in its usage 8-fold, and that the word achievement has also increased in its usage, and I think he says 11-fold. He also contrasts the word fun with pleasure, and obviously contrasting achievement with excellence. And about halfway through the text, he gives us the standard Merriam-Webster definition of pleasure as a state of gratification. Now, we all know that it is so important for philosophers to define their terms, because the definition sets the identity for the thing. And so look at what he's doing here. He's saying pleasure is a state of being gratified. As virtue of his defining it as a state, what he's saying is it's a state of being. That's where he's going to end up with his argument. And as a state of being, it belongs to the mental realm more than, say, the physical realm. And he also says that pleasure has an element of the sublime in it. And if you don't know what the sublime is, this is a wonderful word. You should go and look it up. I'm not going to tell you what it is. So the word pleasure then contrasted with the word fun, and he says that fun is about doing. So if pleasure is about being, fun is about doing. And the kind of doing where we need that off switch, the kind of fun that, and I think the example he gives is paintballing, where we are just so involved in the activity where we're not really thinking, we're just doing, we're just having fun. So it's not feeling, and he also says we don't really feel fun, but we do fun. All right, so it's not something that we feel, because feeling would belong to a state of being, right? So that's the first distinction that he makes between these 2 words, fun and pleasure. And then a little bit later on, he goes on to make another important distinction between achieving and excellence. When he's talking about achieving, he talks about this generation as considering fame as something that is good in and of itself. So it's an end in itself. And what does that mean? Well, that means that achieving fame would be its own goal, as opposed to achieving fame, and let me put put it over here for an example. This would be an example where it's not an end of itself, but it would be not even a means to an end. It's a byproduct. So it's not the goal itself. It's something that would happen because of. So let's take an example of, say, a young author who writes a book for the first time. And that author probably considered, let's say that author becomes very famous. If that author considers fame as an end in itself, then that author, who will perhaps one day become famous, would have written the book because he wants to become famous. Okay, that's where fame would be an end in itself. But when fame is a byproduct or even a means to an end, the book would have been written not because the author wants to become famous, but because the author wants to communicate a message, leave a legacy, share insights. So the goal is not the fame, but the goal is communication or sharing or whatever else. And so that's a really important distinction here. He says, so he wants to connect achievement to this way of looking at fame, right? We all want to be famous for 5 minutes kind of deal. So we work hard on our social media profile and our YouTube channel. And then he speaks about excellence as a quality of being. And I'm sure that you're starting to see this shape up here. If it's a quality of being, we see that there is a connection between the search for excellence and pleasure, and the experience of pleasure, as opposed to achievement, which he says, I mean, anybody can achieve, right? And he uses an interesting analogy about how our culture is so engrossed in measuring achievement in our young children, and what are we really measuring there when we're doing that kind of testing. So achieving versus excellence. Anyone can achieve, but not anybody can attain excellence. So he's talking here about achievement and fun. So he's paired these two up. And so look at his conclusion. He says that this pair of excellence and pleasure has become passé. And in the modern world, the pair that has won the quiet battle is the pair of words achievement and fun. So this would be the modern replacement for excellence and pleasure. And somewhere in the middle of the text, he drops this bombshell when he says, words make us. We make our words, but then our words make us. A little bit like the Marshall McLuhan quote. And if you don't know Marshall McLuhan, then I'm sure your substitute there today will tell you who he is. Tools make us. We make our tools, and the tools make an impact and a difference and change our environment and change the way we live and change the way we interact with one another, which in turn changes us. So we make our tools, but our tools make us. So that's what he's doing there when he says words make us. It's an allusion to this very famous idea of Marshall McLuhan, who, by the way, was a Canadian, who said, we make tools and then the tools change us and the tools make us. So there's my take on this very wonderful article by Anand Giridharadas, America and the Fun Generation. And my question to you is, do you agree with him? So you'll see the questions that I have for you on the wiki page. And if you don't get all of this done in class today, I expect it done for homework.